Hello, and welcome to the Climate and Environmental Justice Series, a capstone project of the 2022 Ohio Environmental Council Leadership Initiative. My name is Naya, and I am joined today with my fellow cohorts, Brittany and Maya. We will be presenting about advocacy in your community. We had the honor of speaking with Kelsey and Sarah from Advocates for Ohio's Future, and that interview will be included in the presentation as well. After going through our lesson plan, a student will be able to define advocacy, how to get involved with their community, and navigating the political system. Now I will pass it on to Britt.
All right. Hi, my name is Britt. I'm going to start on the focus area of advocacy. So what is advocacy? The definition of advocacy is the act or process of supporting a cause, and the individuals that defend, support, or act in favor of a specific cause is known as an advocate. And what makes an advocate? Advocates influence a government's practices on behalf of a specific group of people. They support solutions and causes that matter most to their communities, and they are the voice for the voiceless and the powerless. They take on the responsibility to speak for a cause and to fight for a cause on behalf of their community and neighborhood. You may not have realized this, but we have a long history of advocacy in the state of Ohio. Advocates of the past fought for unthinkable changes in a time when many could not dare to dream. They dedicated their lives to building a better future for generations to come. And advocates of the present, we continue the fight, working hard to create more equitable communities while passing on our knowledge and expertise to youth advocates. And the youth advocates are our future. They're our future change makers, protesters, policymakers, and advocates for decades to come. This is one of my favorite quotes: "When the world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful." The truth is that you can become an advocate just by identifying the problems and challenges that you see and speaking up for those solutions. Some of the issues that Ohioans face are food hunger and insecurity, heat waves and extreme weather, health and clean air, and clean and affordable energy. So I want to quickly read this story. If you go to dosomething.org and you type in Ohio, you can see a long list of residential stories about how climate injustice is affecting them. So in this story, on the east side of Columbus, Ohio, what once was a booming industrial area has since become poor and polluted. After manufacturers left and white flight occurred, the now predominantly Black neighborhoods become undesirable. Highways and railroads were constructed to separate the east side from adjacent communities, with filtration designed so runoff and fumes would fill the east neighborhoods rather than polluting the wealthy ones. People living on the east side now have higher rates of asthma, heart and lung issues, and other conditions that have been previously connected to pollution exposure. My vision for a greener future starts with removing the divisions between us. The barriers between economic classes and major vectors for air and water pollution should be rerouted around the city, rather than through its heart. This would not only cause the neighborhoods to merge physically, but would lessen pollutants being filtered into communities of people of color. And this story was submitted by Sasha, again on the dosomething.org website. So next is how do you advocate for a cause? One of the most common things to do is just to tell your lawmakers, contact your local representatives. It is one of the most accessible ways to voice your opinions to decision makers, and just raise awareness. If you see something is wrong, raise awareness about that issue, and then educate your neighbors and community members and talk to them about how this directly affects them. And now I'm going to transition over to Maya, where she's going to talk to you about how to get involved in your community.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Maya, and this is your call to action. Next slide, please. So just as a mini refresher, so we're going to start with our friends and families. We're going to reach out to committees, conferences, and trainings. We're going to reach out to local businesses, and then this is how you're going to create the group of people that are going to back you to get things done. All right, I think kitchen tables are one of the best places to have conversations. You know, you look around and you realize that the people you have surrounded with yourself with, your friends, your families, your favorite coworkers, you guys probably have many things in common. So you probably care about the same kind of thing. So what have you noticed happening in your community lately? What kind of issues do you think could be solved? And what kind of ideas do you guys think you have that you could potentially use to make the solutions for these problems? So, you know, take that with you and then start having those conversations with people on the street, other coworkers that maybe aren't your favorite, your bosses, and see where that takes you. And this could lead to potentially either starting a committee or joining a committee that aligns with your ideas. And this is going to be a small group of people who are working to come to a common goal, and that's a good way to share ideas and to get information from people who have lived other lives. And then the next step from that would be a conference, so a larger group of people, potentially hosted by a bunch of sponsors who have money, so the other people that you can talk about, you can network and get together and really like sit down and decide what issues you would like to tackle and how you might tackle them. And then of course there's always professional training. So whether or not your job is bringing people in to talk to you about, you know, signing up to vote or, you know, having you volunteer, all of these things are good ways to get involved in your community specifically and see what is going on. And then your next step could be you know, hitting up businesses that may already have these resources in place. So money is always something that helps things move along faster. So if you are talking to an already established business, they might already have things put in place that help these specific issues. And they might already have a network of people that you can get in contact with that will also help move the project forward. So here are some of my examples. Gym City Market is a cooperative grocery store that started on the west side of Dayton because there was a food apartheid and there was no grocery stores within a 5-mile radius of low-income housing. So as a community, we banded together to raise this money to get this grocery store open and give access to our community members to fresh fruits and vegetables. They also host seminars and allow, you know, young kids to come in and taste vegetables that maybe they haven't experienced before. They sell local goods, which is helping local businesses. And, you know, it's a good hub for people to gather and get ideas flowing. My second example would be Five Rivers Metro Park, which is a local environmental group that works on our parks. They also host classes and seminars, some that are free and some that you have to pay for. And that's a good way to meet people who have the same kinds of ideas as you. So just get out there and get involved with different situations and you might find your group of people who can make things happen. So just as a recap, figure out who cares about the same problems as you do. Figure out where you can focus. Starting small is not a bad thing. It helps you hone in on your skills, the skill sets of your group, and this is where you can probably make your most change. And then how do you keep the momentum? Is it hosting community meetings? Is it having community potlucks? Is it going door to door and talking to your neighbors? Is it, you know, standing on the sidewalk and having a petition sign? So just making sure that you are not losing hope in getting this thing done because it could take a while. And then all of this would end up with you leaving your mark on the world, on your community, you know, in somebody else's life. And then a quote that I found that I very much enjoy is, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can make a difference in the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." So even a group as small as 2 people can make a change. I would like to pass it to Naya.
Okay, here we are. So like my cohort said, my name is Naya, and today I will be focusing on how you all can make your voice heard. In addition to that, I'll also be discussing navigating the political system and why it matters for the environment. And so the three methods that I'll focus on today is voting in every election, holding your representatives accountable, as well as strategizing and organizing. And so voting was listed first intentionally because it is one of the most important methods that you will have for advocating for yourself. Voting is important for a multitude of reasons. However, it's really powerful because the politicians we elect have an immense amount of power over our laws, policies, and the general trajectory of our world. So voting for or against someone or a piece of legislation can send a powerful message. So that's why it's essential that we vote for every election. And speaking of elections, there are three types where people typically vote in elections. There's going to be your local, state, and your national elections. On the local level, you're going to be voting for your city councilors, judges, mayors, and other local officials. For your state elections, you're going to be thinking to elect your attorney generals, your House of Representatives, senators, as well as your governor. And on the national level, this is probably the election that most people are more familiar with and are more likely to vote. This is for your federal office holders, so your presidents as well as your vice presidents and their cabinet members. So each tier has a different set of responsibilities and roles, and it's extremely important to understand how these differ from each other. And so as a follow-up to voting, you're going to want to make sure that you are also holding your representatives accountable. Just putting them into office is not enough. You want to follow up to make sure that they are representing the interests that they promised that they would represent. And so that relates to climate change because many elected officials have either denied climate change or done very little to reduce its impact. And so it's important to hold these officials accountable by demanding that they legislate policies and laws that will effectively protect the environment and prevent any additional harm from being done to it. And again, as a follow-up to voting and holding them accountable, you also want to engage with them. You want to have a relationship built with them if possible to where they can hear your concerns, they can hear your interests, and then they can act on them and so on. And so there's three primary methods to doing this. The first one is attending your local town halls. And essentially that will provide you the opportunity to speak one-on-one or, in a group setting with your city or local officials and provide feedback and have that dialogue. So that's definitely an effective way. Furthermore, you can talk to your representatives. So whether that's calling their office, writing a letter, interacting with them on social media, just building that conversation with them or even their legislative staff is also effective. In addition to that, you can also attend local protests. And so these are essentially protests that will happen in response or in support of any legislation that your elected official may or may not be supporting. So after you've elected your officials, after you've engaged with them, you've held them accountable, if you're still not getting the outcome that you want, or you want them to be more passionate about supporting certain other legislative policies, you can go to strategy and organizing. And so one of the primary ways to really organize and cause a direct impact is with boycotts. And so with boycotts, you're going to enact change by forcing and encouraging companies or organizations to enact policies that are going to decrease harms to the environment. And this is powerful because sometimes boycotts are going to directly affect the profit margins of these companies. And with companies having their main goal to be to drive profit up, if you're affecting that, they're going to be definitely influenced to want to make a change. And so that dynamic is definitely demonstrated in this next statistic. Over 25% of boycotts that do receive national attention have a direct impact on influencing corporate practice. And so that's a huge number. And it really just goes to show how when you do make your voice heard, the impact that you can have on not even your state and local level, but on a national level as well. And so that is going to conclude the first part of our presentation. We do have a follow-up and like a supplemental interview with Kelsey and Sarah with Advocacy for Ohio's Future that we have included as well. Good.
Okay.
Great. Hi guys, welcome. I think we should go through as cohort members and introduce ourselves first, and then we'll have our speakers introduce themselves. So if Naya, would you like to go first?
Yes, so my name is Naya Carruthers. I was recently a legislative aide for the Ohio House of Representatives. I worked with the Democrats. And my area of interest will definitely be environmental racism. I'm very passionate about that.
All right, Britt, you're up.
All right. My name is Brent Montgomery. I work for the City of Cleveland in the Mayor's Office of Sustainability. I am the Communications and Sustainability Administrator. And my interest for joining this cohort is just to bring awareness to communities in need about their climate solutions and advocacy solutions as well.
And I am Maya Conastu. I work for Miami Conservancy District in Dayton, Ohio. I'm a hydrotech, and my interests really lie in increasing diversity in the workforce. So if Sarah and Kelsey, if you guys want to take turns telling us your name, where you work, and like a quick background of how you ended up where you are now.
Sure, I will kick us off, and thank you so much for inviting us to be here today. My name is Kelsey Berkfeld. I'm the Director of Advocates for Ohio's Future. We are a statewide coalition of health and human service organizations that really span the gamut of health and human service sectors. So we have folks who work on policy, we have health and human service providers, we have researchers really joined together and united to make sure that legislative decisions are being made in the best interest of families so that they can live really healthy and productive lives in really strong communities. So again, really wide base of subjects that we cover, and our organization again is a coalition, so we work together to make sure that we are on message and we can really mobilize when there's some things that we need to respond to at the state house specifically. We work mostly on the statewide level. We dabble in some local issues and in some federal issues as well. A little bit about me. So I actually started at the Ohio Senate. I worked in the Senate Minority Caucus for about close to 5 years for the ranking member on the Finance and Budget Committee, as well as Education. And then I moved on to SEIU District 1199 as their lobbyist. There's a legislative liaison for about 3 years. And then I've been in my position with Advocates for Ohio's Future, as AOF, as we will refer to it, for about 4 years. And something new every day, certainly. And I'm really excited for you to hear a little bit more about what we do on a daily basis. And I will allow my colleague, Sarah, to tell you a little bit about herself.
Great. Yeah. Good morning or good afternoon if that's when you're watching this. My name is Sarah Hudasek. I'm the Policy and Communications Assistant with Advocates for Ohio's Future. AOF is a two-woman shop, so it's me and Kelsey who are steering the ship at the top of the coalition. And after I graduated from college with a degree in public policy, I worked for 4 years in the private sector. So I'm proof that anyone can become an advocate. And I'm excited to share all that I've learned.
Well, thank you guys so much. We are focusing on being an advocate in your community and how to take climate action. And so we just wanted to talk to anybody who had kind of any information on how to get started in being an advocate for yourself, for your community. And so that's kind of what our questions are geared toward. So our first question listed is, what are some of the policy issues you believe are essential to Ohio's future?
I'll take the first stab and then I'll allow Sarah if she has some additional thoughts. So I believe, again, as Advocates for Ohio's Future, how we address our policy approach is that you cannot silo different issues. Everything is intersectional. We have to address lots of different issues of a person's environment, their community, in order to improve the quality of someone's life or make sure that there's opportunity there, which is why we make sure when we think about health, we often talk about the social determinants of health and well-being of both people and families collectively. we think about different factors such as, safe housing. We think about, again, climate factors and environmental factors are certainly a part of it. We work specifically on lead abatement as well. Education, we think about access to healthcare, basic food and nutrition, making sure that really kind of those basics are there so that we can build and support from a strong foundation, kids specifically and families as they grow up and they kind of delve into the community. So I think if I could single out a couple specific issues that we think of, we start from health is first. We believe that health is pivotal in making sure that folks can, again, participate either in the workforce, to follow their passions, to follow additional education opportunities. So health is number one. Access to healthcare, I think, is vital and crucial. And then the second one I would cite would be K through 12 education, making sure that we have an equitable access to education. The quality is the same and high across the state. We know that we have some different pockets across communities where that certainly is not the case at the moment. Something that is really important and something that I think our state can certainly work on. We're taking some steps, but it's more challenging than it should be. And I think that a strong basis of education, as well as access to healthcare, and that's really strong, healthy start are really solid foundations. And I'll ask Sarah what her opinion is as well.
That was great.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely agree with everything that Kelsey said. We focus a lot on the safety net for low-income Ohioans so that they have, like Kelsey said, a healthy start, a foundation to coming out of poverty. So that's supplemental nutrition assistance program or food stamps, cash assistance, assistance with utilities, assistance with a broadband bill. So really that sort of safety net underlying everything that is in a person's life and kind of those building blocks. So I agree with everything that Kelsey said, and that's something that's centered in all of AOF's policy discussions and all of our advocacy.
Yeah, that was something that was kind of heavy on our hearts recently, thinking about the heat wave and how after that big storm that came through, a bunch of people lost power. So I remember Britt bringing up like our elderly community, like how are they getting what they need? How are they accessing cooler temps? And so as people who are involved in these kind of things and younger people who are like trying to make change, I feel like personally it could be very overwhelming, especially for someone who, like, I'm in the environmental field, but I am not someone who is actively participating in policy or anything like that. So how, like, do you guys have any advice for somebody who is wanting to make a change but is getting a little scared about, oh, there's so much happening, where do you even start?
I can identify it completely. Again, given that we cover such a variety of topics, it can seem some days that the entire world is on fire. What's the next step? What is the first step that we can even take? So something that I know helps me in kind of those times, again, is to look for, even taking one small step forward. I think especially if you're an individual advocate looking to kind of dabble in the field and try to get more involved, I would look for an organization, a community organization, maybe a neighborhood group, some of your peers around you who may already be involved, kind of on the outskirts of this work, to see if you can hop in, maybe join some initial meetings, get a feel for what that organization is about. Would certainly get involved in your kind of local politics level, state, if you're close by, if you're really interested in that level. City council meetings and kind of local policy or committee organizations. Those groups are a little bit more accessible, a little bit less intimidating, I would say, to come in to observe kind of how the conversations are going, what are the issues of the day. Subscribe to things like newsletters and policy organizations or groups that you trust, to kind of just get your first little step into the field. Again, it absolutely can be intimidating, and I would find, and you don't have to limit yourself to one issue. You don't have to be a single issue person or advocate. Again, understanding that so many different factors work together when we think about a step forward and a path forward for everyone, and moving ourselves together, again, as communities, and moving forward and getting stronger together as well. You don't have to just focus on one issue. It can seem overwhelming, but you can think about how those different issues intersect with each other.
Wow. That's great. So I guess as a follow-up question to that, in your words, why do you believe advocacy is an important step to getting things done? Why should people get involved in the things that are happening around them?
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to throw this one to Sarah, actually, first. You want to take it?
Thanks so much, Kelsey. Yeah, it's so important because Ohioans, voters are the ones that are electing in, your local elected officials at, the city council, county commissioners, governor, the state legislature. And so it's your voice that brought them to that position. And so it's really important that you're engaged in what's going on. There's a lot that happens. It's like Kelsey said, really overwhelming. And it can feel like sometimes you have to know everything before you engage in any advocacy conversation, but you don't have to be an expert in everything that's going on. You can just say, in my corner of the world, in my piece of what's going on in this community, like this is what I'm seeing and this is what I believe. So that's still a really valuable discussion. And, Kelsey and I, we're not in every area of the state. We can't see what's going on the ground in every city and every community. So it's really important that local organizations, local citizens are bringing that perspective. And that's something that, your lawmakers, the governor, they can't be in all places at once either. So there's a really big gap if citizens aren't engaged and bringing those stories and bringing that firsthand experience to the state house, to their local officials who may not see everything that's going on in their local communities either. So I think that's why it's really important, is it's really essential. The way that our system is set up, there's a gap if you're not there.
Okay. And then I guess our next question would be, what do you think? What do you think is the number one motivator for people to learn the issues that is happening in their community?
Is there a specific topic that you think gets people fired up faster? Like what gets people wanting to get involved in local policy the quickest? If there is one, or if it's just a smorgasbord of like a little bit of everything.
That's a fantastic word. So certainly smorgasbord is a big contributor, but I think really there has to be one tipping point. We know that policy, I know people like to say politics are personal, policy is personal. You have to see a change, you have to see something happen directly to you or a loved one that moves you, either positively or negatively. Unfortunately, we would say a lot of time it's more negative than a positive change that we would see. But really, how to get involved in these issues, there has to be something that is so personal that kind of hits you in your heart, or that you witness firsthand, that moves you to action. Because we know advocacy it's a long road, it's a difficult road. It can be hard when you don't see changes quickly to stay involved, to stay engaged. It's often thankless. It takes a long time to make the changes that you wish to see. So to continue in the fight, to even get started, it has to be a personal mission, something that motivates you again and moves you to take action. Sarah, I wondered if you have a different opinion.
No, I absolutely agree. And it could be something as simple as personal, like feeling that you voted in your elected official and they're not advocating on behalf of your best interest. Or it could be, your mother was on food stamps when you were a child. And so you want to advocate for increased access to food stamps because you remember what it was like being on food stamps as a child. It could vary very significantly what that personal reason is. So if you're a local organization and you're trying to recruit local advocates and local organizers, your message might be different. There might be different personal reasons for every advocate that joins. And so finding kind of what resonates with people is probably the first step. And Kelsey and I spend a lot of time on that, on, deciding what will resonate with people when we are writing our newsletters and social media posts and sending out sign-on letters and things like that.
So I have a follow-up question. So what are some of the barriers that you guys face when trying to advocate for communities and even trying to push legislative policies.
Certainly. And this is something that Sarah touched on earlier, that there is oftentimes a very big disconnect between your elected official and the majority of folks living in their district and communities. It can be a kind of a blind spot, or it can be kind of, something that maybe some elected officials don't accept, that there's struggle in their communities. It's very interesting to sit down and talk with an elected official and say, this is the number of constituents in your district who are on assistance or on public programs. And they're blown away. So you don't see it. You might not choose to see some of the struggle or some of the challenges that the folks that you represent are facing. So that can be tough to have that conversation and convince folks. I also believe it can be challenging to change someone's mind with preconceived notions about people, especially when we work again with try to strengthen public programs and give folks a step up when they are facing some challenges. An immediate move to fraud, or that these people are scammers, just kind of a terrible.
It's learned behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
So if people in your community aren't doing those things, why would you want to take the first step? That's scary. So
yes, kind of a preconceived notions of people who reach out and need to step up. That can be challenging.
And I feel like most underserved communities have an already sense of distrust from people trying to help anyway.
Agreed.
So
agreed.
I can see how that could be a hard thing for you guys to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And we've even had to change some different ways how we frame issues. When we think about, again, some of those basic needs support, I know Sarah and I come from a place of, this is basic human dignity, this is respect, this is everyone deserves to have these issues, these foundations taken care of so they can move forward, in whatever their hopes and dreams are. Oftentimes when we talk to people, we have to talk about return on investment and not talk about this is humanity. This is something that everyone deserves. Healthcare is a human right. We have to talk about it as well. Mm-hmm. If we, allow folks access to Medicaid, they can see a primary physician. They're not going to the emergency room, which is more expensive, and that cost of care is more expensive for the hospitals. It's more expensive on the system. We have to frame it as a return on investment or ROI rather than this is the right thing to do. So we often frame our messaging and how we frame things depending on who we're talking about. Again, knowing kind of how they vote on things, knowing what their preconceived notions might be. We often have to change our argument and make adjustments when we go into a meeting.
Okay, so we're coming up on time, but I wanted to ask you guys one last question. What is your vision for a successful Ohio? Like, what do you see when 50 years from now? How do you want to leave Ohio? What is your mark on the world?
I mean, we will never leave Ohio.
I know.
People who end up in Ohio stay in Ohio forever.
Here forever.
So yeah.
Sarah, I'm going to throw it to you first.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that is a really great question. And so often we, in the state that we're in and in the political environment that we're in, we have to focus on small victories and, baby steps at a time. So it's great to always center sort of a long-term goal and this dream that you have, and then those baby steps add up really fast towards that goal. And my vision of a successful Ohio is one where Ohioans have stocked pantries, they can afford food, they have access to healthcare, they have good paying jobs with benefits, where there isn't this cycle of poverty where generation after generation, the same families are on the same assistance programs and work the same jobs and can't get ahead. So that's my vision, is really just a place where there is a path out of poverty, because right now we like to think that there is sometimes, because we have all these programs and we spend all this money on all of these programs and there's all these people on these programs, and when you really dig into it further, that's really not the case. Is there's a lot of families that are on these programs for generations after generations. And so that's what I would like is for Ohio to really invest in bringing its residents out of poverty and really invest in those programs, because they are essential supports. They are not where people are cheating the system or anything like that. So really combating that messaging and investing in our lower income residents is really at the heart of everything that I love to do for AOF. And Kelsey, what's your vision of a successful future?
Certainly, well said, Sarah. I think taking it back where I'm going to get a little bit broader scale, I think opportunity for all. I think one of our core policy platforms for AOF is pathways to prosperity for all. I think if the catchphrase, if you work hard, you can get ahead. I wish that was true, because we understand that life and reality, sometimes those who take the right steps, who work hard, who work hard in school or in their communities and volunteer and do great things, that doesn't always pay off the way that we wish. And we would hope that there are certainly policies that we can change to work that way. But I think opportunities for all would be my vision for a strong and prosperous Ohio.
Oh, you guys are amazing.
It's great to talk about the positives for once. Unfortunately, Sarah and I are stuck in the sadness a lot.
Yeah.
So this is really great.
Well, thank you guys so much for agreeing to do this with us. We're going to end the recording, but I would like to publicly, again, thank you for spending your time. If you could stick around for a couple minutes afterwards, we can get your contact information so we can share that with people who are watching this video. That would be great. And we really appreciate you guys rolling with the punches that we've thrown at you. So
happy to. We're scrappy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to end this by thanking our other cohort members for their time and commitment to this project. And then we would also like to thank the Ohio Environmental Council and the Black environmental leaders for starting this initiative. The videos will be posted on the Ohio Environmental Council YouTube page, as well as our contact information. Please check out the other two sessions as well and like and comment. And thank you for taking the time to watch this video.